Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
One of my first projects out of law school, I became a lawyer and I helped a couple other attorneys try a case. It was a week-long case in Macomb County. And so I would go out there every single day with these attorneys and I'd help them with the case. And most of the time I actually sat back in the gallery. But during breaks, I'd walk up and talk to them and I'd help them with stuff. I'd run errands and so on. And I was just, learning my way around the courthouse. And I remember one day I got there early. I went and sat in the courtroom and no one else was there. And then another attorney walked in and he sits down. He's an older guy. And we said hello and started talking. And he realized I was straight out of law school, still brand new and shiny, And we got to talking. And I asked him what he was there for. And he said, I've got a client who got in a bit of trouble. And I said, what's your client do? And I merely meant I don't know, profession-wise, or just tell me something. He started telling me the entire story. And he said his client would take a work truck and a big old trailer and drive around on the weekends to job sites of construction companies where there's nobody working. And he would just pull up, look around, and then just grab a bulldozer, an earth mover, or a front loader, or a tractor, or a generator, or something that was loose, haul it up onto his trailer and drive off with it. And he said that his client would do this every single weekend, and he would take this equipment from job sites, which, in case you didn't know this yet, it's illegal. And he would then take the stuff, and he knew people in the industry who'd buy construction equipment that was a little shady. And the interesting thing is, and I'd never stopped to think about this before, is that, cars, you drive them on the road, they've got license plates on them and so on. And if a car gets stolen, you put a license plate on it. It might not match. You might get caught. But if you buy an earth mover from somebody who's a little on the shady side, and you bring it to a job site, and it's not on the road, who's ever going to catch that? And this attorney's telling me the story, and he goes, yeah, my guy's been doing this for years, apparently. And every now and then, he'd almost get caught. He'd be at a job site, loading something onto his trailer, and a cop would walk up and say, excuse me, what are you doing? And he'd go, I'm moving a piece of equipment. My friend owns this company. And they go, no, we got complaints about people stealing stuff out here. And he'd say, well, I don't know what to tell you. This job site, you're at 16 in Shaner. The guy go, no. This is 17 in Shaner. I'm at the wrong site. And he'd try to bluff his way out of it and just leave, And he'd gotten away with it a few times, and finally he got caught. But the interesting thing is, and the guys in the industry will tell you this, is that a lot of that equipment is not that hard to operate. In fact, a lot of it doesn't even have a key like a car does. And in fact, I had an Army truck for a while, deuce and a half, M35A2. Didn't have a key. Anybody who knew how to start it could climb into it. Didn't even have door locks. Climb into it, flip a few switches, press a button, and start it. And I was always a little worried about that, because somebody could come by and go, hey, I know how to start that thing. And so construction equipment has always been one of these things that I've kind of wondered about as to why they don't put more safety measures in place. Well, it turns out that they apparently are, because they just caught somebody, a Saginaw Township business family are facing 24 felonies in thefts of heavy-duty equipment. Cole Waterman wrote the story for MLive, and I suspect that what's at the heart of this story is very similar to what I just described to you that the old-timer attorney told me about back in the day. But a Saginaw Township business-owning family is now facing dozens of felonies for somehow coming into the possession of stolen heavy-duty machinery from around the state. Police recently arrested a husband and a wife and their 23-year-old son, all in the family. The family owns an electric company up in Saginaw Township. Now, Saginaw Township is in Michigan. I've said before, Michigan is shaped like a mitten or a hand, and Saginaw's up in this general area, and that's Saginaw Bay on Lake Huron. Trust me. The Saginaw Township police chief said that back in March, his officers were contacted by Livonia police officers investigating the theft of a Bobcat from a work site. Turns out the Bobcat had a transmitter on it and indicated that it was at this family's business instead of where it belonged with its owner down in Livonia. So I'm guessing this is a LoJack sort of thing. They put something on the Bobcat in case it wandered off. So the chief says officers went out there and confirmed there were several pieces of stolen equipment on that property. None of it was stolen from Saginaw Township. It was all from elsewhere around the state and even maybe as far away as Ohio. The chief described the equipment as being excavators, front end loaders, backhoes, a caterpillar, and the like. The Michigan State Police coordinated the investigation with Saginaw Township Police and other agencies. Police recovered 5 pieces of equipment and have evidence that the family possessed a 6th piece at one point that might be gone. The question is, where did it go? The chief says they were all involved in the operation where they stole the equipment and were keeping it at their house. They repainted some of it and tried taking the serial numbers off of some of it. So some of this equipment does have serial numbers on it. Some of it might even have paperwork like a title sort of thing. But again, it's not necessarily tracked the same way that titles in cars are. Now, there might be financing statements, for instance, a big piece of equipment. You finance it. There'll be a Uniform Commercial Code document, a UCC statement that gets filed with the state to indicate that this piece of equipment's got a lien on it by somebody. But if that piece of equipment gets stolen and just disappears, well, then that's another question altogether. Prosecutors and the police declined to comment on whether or not they think the family was reselling the equipment or using it for their own purposes. Authorities issued warrants for the 3 family members the day of their arrest. The next morning, they all appeared before Saginaw County District Judge for arraignment on combined 24 charges between them. So there's 3 people facing 24 charges combined. I guess it would be the father is charged with 6 counts of larceny by conversion, 5 counts of receiving and concealing more than $20,000 in stolen property, and 1 count of false pretenses over $20,000. The wife and the son each face 5 counts of receiving and concealing more than $20,000 in stolen property, and 1 count of false pretenses over $20,000. The false pretenses charge is a 15-year felony, while the other 2 charges are both punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The judge set their bonds at $24,000 cash or 10% for the father and the mother and the son, $12,000 personal recognizance with day reporting. They will be appearing at a preliminary exam sometime in July. And, this is construction season in Michigan, which pretty much starts right around February, ends right around Thanksgiving. The second they can work on the roads, they do, and they don't work swiftly. And by the way, I don't blame the construction workers for construction. I don't blame them at all. I blame the state for mismanaging how construction is done. They will do construction on the roads at the dumbest times, and they will let roads get really, really bad to the point where they need to be overhauled more than they probably would have needed to be if they'd been fixed earlier. But you drive by a construction site and you see all the equipment out there. And then you drive by at night and a lot of it's still there. Now, I don't stop and look at it, but every now and then you'll see, for instance, where they'll have a generator. And the generator will be up in the air, being dangled from a crane. And they're not doing that as some sort of taunt to see if you want to come by and whack at it like a piñata. They're doing that, I presume, because that generator would be really easy to haul away. And I suspect that the cab on the thing that's lifted it off the ground is lockable. And so that's the security system that you run right there. But the question then, of course, is what do you do with a steamroller or a bulldozer or something like that? If those things, do they have keys? Do they not have keys? And how tamper-proof and how crime-resistant are the ignition systems on those things compared to, the anti-theft systems on a modern car? And I suspect that the technology, it's available, but the question is whether they're using it or not. So I will admit I am not heavily into this field right now. I don't know enough about it. I watch some of the gold mining shows on cable. So I see these pieces of equipment, but I don't know much about how easy they would be to steal. But it appears that some of the stuff is still fairly easy to steal, much in the way that guy described to me back in the old days, back in Macomb County. I have no idea what happened to his client, by the way. I have no idea. Because he told me when I was talking to him, he said, well, I'm hoping to talk to the prosecutor and really play it down. And the problem that he had with his client was that they only caught him on the one instance. And it was a big enough piece of equipment where they had him in circuit court, so I'm guessing it was a felony. But they suspected that he'd been doing this for a while. And there was a lot of, anecdotal evidence and witnesses who thought they saw a car that looked like his and the pattern of where all these things were. And so the guy said, I'm hoping we can cut a deal on this one because it's his first offense, but who knows? So it's a crazy story. And I'm surprised I haven't seen more of this. And I'm sure it happens out there from time to time. Keith sent me the story. Said, Steve, have you seen this story? It's in your backyard. And it's in Michigan, but I hadn't seen it. But when I read the headline, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the story. That's the same story that the guy was telling me back in 1991 in Macomb County Circuit Court over there in Mount Clemens. So there you go. Saginaw Township business family faces 24 felonies and thefts of heavy-duty equipment. Cole Waterman wrote it. Keith sent it. Thanks a lot. From MLive. Questions or comments? Put them below. Those. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You need the rain to appreciate the sun, darkness to appreciate light, people to appreciate solitude.